There have been things said about that, and there are certainly methods and ideas about keeping that. But it's an important point to see these differences and to understand that we have to find, in some of these cases, solutions and tools in order to help people to bridge that gap between their local life and the globalization that the internet and the other issues in the world are creating. Just one thing to say, this comes straightforward out of the European security and defense policy. And the European Union, one of the principles there, when they talk about security and defense of the European Union, is that they see themselves having an international identity that supports political cohesion, that supports solidarity, and that supports continuity and values, the European values. And I think many Europeans, if we talk about European values, have some idea about what that means. Also, we want to protect the way we are working in the international environment, the uniqueness of what we call the EU soft power, the unity in diversity that we are used to live in, and the commitment to unilateralism, not only in Europe, but in general in the world, which should, of course, be consistent with the European values. Human rights is a very important issue in the European values. And if we think about EU security, the European defense policy and security and defense policy sees this as human security. It is protecting the citizen and their rights and values, and not just protecting the power, as could be in certain other situations. So it's important that these are the things that European, if we think about trust in the European context, is what we want to protect and what we want to build up in the international context of the internet. So if we think about a European trust approach, I think important issues are identity management and authentication. That means not necessarily that everything and everybody must be identifiable in every situation, but certainly that there is an overall mechanism that brings us back to the world where we recognize people, where we identify people, and where this is one of the issues that we can base trust upon, that we need a clear focus on keeping freedom and privacy as the high values that need to be protected, that at the same time, of course, we need responsibility within the net. We cannot avoid malware and malpractices in the net, but we will, as we also do under the rule of law in our own society, we ask people to have a responsible life and follow the law as they know it. And of course we need openness, a free press, and so the trust should be based on the Constitution, on law, on freedom, on contracts, on assumptions between people, on, say, politeness in general even, and so on. But it should also be enforceable by audits, by mandated reporting for transparency, by, for instance, consumer protection law, and, say, court, penitentiary procedures, and ethics. So if I would like to come to conclusions with respect to some of the principles of trust in digital life, as I said already before, in the first place, it depends on context, on time, location, partners, subject, the transaction circumstances, and it should include identity management, but based on what is currently kind of broadly accepted, the what we call the 7 laws of identity management and the laws of privacy. You will hear something about that later on. This means that indeed identity management is respecting in its design already the privacy issues that are necessary to protect our values. We need accountability. The point has been mentioned often. It has also been put forward in the context by people like Danny Weitzner and others. But it needs also to be sure that I don't mean to say that every person should be accountable for every action that he does on the web or wherever. It is accountability within the context. If you have contracts, if you have situations where indeed you promise or by contract or in other ways certain activities to be done by you, then of course the other party has the right to a certain accountability from your side and be able to come back to you if you do not really deliver what is expected. So it's not a question of that if I read a book on the web, then immediately that needs accountability and needs to be registered and needs to be put forward somewhere in a database. It is really about accountability in those situations where it is needed based on contracts, based on law, or based on agreements between people. A second point is transparency, and we need to see that very clearly